Tonight I discovered my son was never sick and the doctor smiling at me had already sold him somewhere else. If you were a father standing in that hallway, would you stay silent or burn the truth alive tonight alone? Before this story unfolds, subscribe because some truths disappear quickly and tonight I might reveal something powerful you should hear. Comment honestly, what would you do if saving your child meant exposing monsters wearing white coats inside your trusted hospital? My son Daniel was only 8 years old when the doctor said his illness was rare, complicated and extremely dangerous. They spoke softly. Calm voices. Gentle smiles. Too gentle. The hospital smelled clean, but something underneath that silence always felt wrong, though I could never explain why. Dr. Adrian Keller led the treatment team, a respected specialist admired by nurses, parents and even local news reporters. He looked into my eyes and promised me something every father desperately wants to believe. Your son will be safe here. Weeks passed slowly. Tests. Scans. Procedures. Daniel grew quieter every day, like he was carrying a secret he did not know how to explain. One night he held my hand tighter than usual and whispered something strange before falling asleep. "Dad, if something happens, promise you will check my backpack." I laughed gently, thinking it was childish fear, but deep inside something cold moved through my chest. The next morning Daniel was gone. Dr. Keller said there had been sudden complications during the night surgery. Everything happened too fast. They showed me papers. Medical explanations. Legal forms. But when I opened Daniel's backpack later that evening, I found something no grieving father should ever discover. A folded hospital map. And 3 words written in my son's shaky handwriting. Basement. Red door. Hurry. And suddenly grief turned into something far more dangerous. Suspicion. That night I returned to the hospital long after visiting hours ended, pretending I had forgotten Daniel's jacket. The night nurse barely looked at me. Hospitals are full of tired people carrying quiet sadness, so one more grieving father meant nothing. But my heart was pounding so loudly I thought the entire hallway could hear it. Daniel's map showed a staircase most visitors never used, hidden behind a maintenance corridor near the radiology wing. The building felt different after midnight. Less human. More mechanical. Fluorescent lights flickered softly above empty hallways while distant machines hummed like breathing monsters behind closed doors. I followed the map slowly. Left corridor. Service elevator. Concrete stairs. Down. The deeper I walked, the colder the air became. Basements in hospitals are supposed to hold storage rooms and electrical equipment, not secrets children write warnings about. Then I saw it. A red metal door at the end of a narrow hallway. No hospital signs. No department label. Just a keypad lock beside it. For a moment I almost turned back. Because once you open a door like that, life never returns to normal again. But Daniel's handwriting kept burning inside my mind. Hurry. I stepped closer and noticed something strange. Scratches near the bottom of the door. Small scratches. Like fingernails. Or tiny hands trying desperately to push something open. My stomach twisted. Through the metal I heard something faint. Not machines. Not pipes. A sound that froze the blood inside my veins. Children whispering. Many children. And suddenly I realized the hospital had never been treating rare diseases. It had been hiding something else. Something buried under polished floors and comforting lies. And behind that red door. My son might still be alive. The keypad should have stopped me. But grief makes ordinary men extremely patient. For 2 hours I waited in the shadows, watching the hallway until someone finally approached the red door. A nurse. Not one I recognized. She typed the code casually, like someone opening a vending machine. The door clicked open. Before it closed again I slipped forward silently and caught it with my foot. Inside the room the air changed instantly. It smelled like disinfectant mixed with something metallic and wrong. Rows of small beds lined the concrete walls. Children slept in most of them. Some younger than Daniel. Some barely older. 4 lines ran into their arms. Medical monitors blinked quietly beside each bed, but something about them felt staged rather than necessary. These kids were not critically ill. They were sedated. Controlled. Stored. A doctor stood near the center table reviewing a clipboard. Dr. Adrian Keller. The man who told me my son was dying. He was speaking softly to another man wearing an expensive suit, not hospital clothing. The buyers from the overseas clinic will arrive tomorrow, Keller said calmly. The healthiest children go first. My heart nearly stopped. Buyers. Children. The suited man nodded slowly like they were discussing furniture shipments instead of human lives. And then Keller said something that made the room spin around me. The boy Daniel was perfect genetic profile, strong immune markers, excellent transplant compatibility. Unfortunately, the father grew suspicious. But complications solved that problem. My knees weakened. They believed I had accepted Daniel's death. Which meant one terrifying possibility still remained. My son might still be somewhere inside this building. Hidden. Prepared. Waiting. And now I understood the truth. The hospital was not saving children. It was selling them. That night I left the basement quietly without confronting anyone, because anger is loud but revenge must remain invisible. If Keller believed I was broken and grieving, he would never expect me to keep watching. So I became exactly what they expected. A quiet father visiting the memorial garden outside the hospital every afternoon, holding flowers, pretending to mourn. Nurses pitied me. Security guards stopped noticing me. Dr. Keller even approached once, placing a comforting hand on my shoulder. Your son was very brave, he said gently. I almost admired the performance. But while they believed my grief story, I was studying everything. Employee schedules. Delivery trucks arriving after midnight. Security cameras that strangely avoided certain corridors. Something bigger than one corrupt doctor was operating here. One evening I followed Keller after his shift ended. He did not drive home. Instead, he visited a private medical research building owned by a company called Helix Foundation. Public records described it as a genetic therapy laboratory. But through the windows I saw something disturbing. Hospital beds. Children again. Different children. And inside one glass room I saw a boy sitting alone, drawing something slowly on paper. Even through the glass I recognized the way he held his pencil. Daniel always gripped pencils too tightly. My chest tightened painfully. But I forced myself to remain calm. Because storming inside would only get us both killed. Instead, I watched carefully as Keller spoke with the Helix director. The woman shook her head. Transport tomorrow night, she said. After that, no evidence remains. Tomorrow night. Which meant I had less than 24 hours to destroy an entire system built on stolen children. And to bring my son home alive. It begins with information. That night I broke into the Helix Foundation office building using a maintenance entrance the cleaning crew forgot to lock. Inside the administrative floor everything looked ordinary. Corporate desks. Research awards. Polished professionalism. But monsters hide best inside respectable buildings. I accessed one computer using a password written lazily under a keyboard. What I discovered confirmed every fear. Medical records of dozens of children transferred secretly from hospitals across the country. Each file labeled with biological compatibility scores. Organ matching potential. Genetic value. Price estimates. Human children categorized like rare inventory. And Daniel's name appeared near the top of the list. Shipment scheduled tomorrow. Destination undisclosed facility. Client payment confirmed. But the most shocking discovery was not the list. It was the board of directors. The Helix Foundation was funded by politicians, powerful businessmen, and international medical investors. Destroying Keller alone would change nothing. The system would survive. Which meant revenge required something stronger than exposure. It required proof so undeniable the entire world would see the truth. I copied every file onto a portable drive. Emails. Financial transfers. Hidden medical reports. Then I planted something else inside their system. A timed data release connected to several investigative journalists. If anything happened to me, the evidence would automatically reach them. Insurance. But the final part of my plan required something far more dangerous. Getting Daniel out before tomorrow night. Because once those transport vans left the building, my son would disappear forever. And monsters who sell children do not tolerate witnesses. The following night I returned to Helix wearing stolen hospital scrubs and a surgical mask. Hospitals teach people to ignore uniforms. If you look like staff, nobody asks questions. Inside the lower research wing, security was heavier than expected. Keycards. Guards. Locked corridors. But money creates patterns, and patterns create weaknesses. At midnight a delivery truck arrived carrying medical supplies, which forced guards to open several internal checkpoints. I moved through those open doors like a shadow. Finally I reached the observation wing where I had seen Daniel through the glass room earlier. My hands trembled slightly. Inside the room Daniel sat quietly on the bed, drawing again. Alive. Thinner. But alive. When he saw me through the door window his eyes widened with shock. Dad? The word barely escaped his lips. I quickly opened the door and rushed inside, hugging him tightly. We have to leave now, I whispered. But Daniel shook his head nervously. They said if I leave the other kids will get hurt. My heart cracked. Even here they were manipulating him. Using fear to keep children obedient. Before I could respond, the hallway lights suddenly changed from white to red. Alarm. A calm female voice echoed through the speakers. Security breach detected. Lockdown initiated. My stomach dropped. Someone had seen us. Daniel grabbed my hand tightly. Dad, they knew you would come, he whispered. And suddenly I realized something terrifying. This had never been a rescue. It had been a trap. Because when the security doors slammed shut, Dr. Adrian Keller slowly stepped into the hallway, smiling patiently. Like a man watching a plan unfold perfectly. His footsteps echoed against the glass walls like he owned every second of the moment. Behind him 2 guards waited silently. My heart pounded, but I forced my face to stay calm. Mr. Carter, Keller said softly. I was wondering how long it would take. Daniel gripped my hand tighter. You knew? I asked quietly. Keller smiled. Suspicion is predictable, he replied. But desperate fathers are even easier to predict. The words felt like ice sliding down my spine. He walked around the room, studying us the way scientists examine test subjects. You followed the clues beautifully, Keller continued. Basement door. Helix building, computer files. He leaned closer. Everything exactly as expected. My chest tightened. You mean, you wanted me to find it? Of course. His smile widened. You gathered evidence for us. The room suddenly felt smaller. Keller placed a small device on the table. A tracking chip, he explained. Hidden inside the drive you used. Cold fear spread through me. Everything you copied, Keller said calmly, was transmitted directly to our servers. Daniel looked up at me confused. What does that mean, Dad? It means, Keller answered before I could speak. Your father did half our work. The guard stepped closer. Metal doors locked automatically behind them. Keller folded his hands behind his back. But here is the real problem, he continued. You were never supposed to reach this room. Silence filled the air. Daniel, Keller said gently. Your father made a mistake tonight. Daniel shook his head. No, he came to save me. Keller sighed. Children always believe in heroes. Then his voice turned colder. But heroes become dangerous witnesses. He looked directly at me. And witnesses cannot be allowed to leave. The guards raised their weapons. And suddenly I realized something terrifying. This night was never meant to end with a rescue. It was designed to end with 2 disappearances. For a long moment I said nothing. Fear filled the room like thick smoke. Keller waited patiently. Men like him believed silence meant surrender. Finally I lowered my shoulders slowly. Fine, I said quietly. Tell me what you want. Daniel looked up at me in shock. Dad. I avoided his eyes. Keller smiled with calm satisfaction. Smart decision, Mr. Carter. He gestured for the guards to step back. Sit. We moved into a nearby conference room. Glass walls. Bright lights. Cold professionalism. Keller placed a folder on the table. Tomorrow morning, he said, the transport vans leave for the airport. Your role is simple. You help prepare the paperwork. Everything will appear legal. My voice stayed steady. And my son? Keller nodded. After the shipment leaves. Daniel walks free. The lie was obvious. But I nodded anyway. All right. Keller relaxed slightly. He thought the game was over. What he didn't know. The real game had started hours earlier. While Keller explained logistics, my eyes drifted to the digital clock on the wall. 2 minutes. 1 minute. 30 seconds. My phone vibrated once inside my pocket. Right on time. Suddenly every computer screen in the room flashed bright white. Then a message appeared across the monitors. Helix child trafficking files released to global media. Keller froze. What did you do? I slowly leaned back in the chair. Remember that drive you tracked? I said calmly. His eyes narrowed. That wasn't the real evidence. Silence crushed the room. Outside. Police sirens began screaming through the night. Keller's perfect smile finally disappeared. You destroyed everything, he whispered. I shook my head slowly. No. You did. But Keller suddenly reached inside his coat. When his hand came out, it was holding a gun. And it was pointed directly at Daniel. The gun looked steady in Keller's hand. But his eyes were different now. Not confident. Not calm. Desperate. Outside the building the police sirens were getting closer. Red lights flashed through the glass walls. Keller exhaled slowly. You think exposure changes anything, he said quietly. Men far more powerful than you built this network. Daniel pressed closer to me. My mind was racing. Time was running out. You already lost, I told Keller. His jaw tightened. You don't understand, he said. Programs like Helix don't die. They relocate. They evolve. He moved the gun slightly. Still aimed at Daniel. But witnesses. His voice turned colder. Witnesses disappear. Daniel whispered my name. Dad. I squeezed his shoulder gently. Stay behind me. Keller's phone suddenly vibrated in his pocket. For a moment he hesitated. Then he glanced down at the screen. And everything changed. His face drained of color. What happened? I asked quietly. He didn't answer. Instead he stared at the phone like the world had cracked open. I stepped closer. "Let me guess," I said. "The directors?" Keller's silence confirmed it. The federal task force had moved faster than he expected. Board members arrested. Accounts frozen. Helix exposed everywhere at once. His empire wasn't relocating. It was collapsing. Police boots thundered down the hallway. Doors burst open. "Drop the weapon." Officers flooded the room. Keller slowly lowered the gun. For the first time. He looked small. As officers cuffed him he glanced back at me. Not angry. Just stunned. Like he could not understand how a quiet father destroyed everything. But the story wasn't finished yet. Because as the police led him away, Daniel whispered something that made my blood run cold. "Dad. There's another basement." Daniel's words stopped everything. "There's another basement," he repeated softly. The investigators looked at each other immediately. "Show us," one officer said. Within minutes we were inside a service elevator heading deeper beneath the building. Lower than the Helix research floor. Lower than the storage level. A place that didn't exist on any official blueprint. When the elevator doors opened, the truth was waiting. Rows of surgical stations. Metal tables. Bright lights. Large refrigerated containers. The investigators froze. One officer whispered quietly. "My God. This wasn't just a trafficking operation. It was an industrial harvesting center." Organ extraction equipment filled the room. Transport boxes labeled with international shipping codes. Evidence everywhere. Years of stolen childhoods. Daniel held my hand tightly. Some of the rescued children were already being taken upstairs. Ambulances waited outside. Families would soon learn their missing sons and daughters were alive. For the first time since the nightmare began. Daniel smiled slightly. Weeks later the world finally saw everything. News channels exploded with the Helix scandal. Politicians resigned. Hospitals shut down. International investigations began. Reporters kept asking me the same question. "Why didn't you take revenge yourself?" My answer never changed. Because revenge doesn't always need violence. Sometimes truth is the most devastating weapon. Daniel sleeps peacefully now. Safe. Alive. Free. And every night I remember the lesson powerful men inside white coats forgot. Silence protects monsters. But patience exposes them. And sometimes, the quietest father carries the most unstoppable revenge of all.